Hey, everybody.
Hola, buenos días.
Janelle.
Look how cold. Look at this. So, like, I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Tear.
Aren't we
Poor
supposed
Janelle.
to be treated, like, nicely in a job?
It's 70 degrees in here. It's fine.
Okay. Well, hi.
Hey, family. Glad to have you with us today. We got a little bit of a difficult subject to talk to you about
Yes.
today. We got a busy week with a campaign tomorrow with Trans World Radio. Can't wait to tell you more about that.
Yes.
And we wanted to get this topic in, so we're talking with you about it right here on Brian Janelle Overtime. Now remember, the best way for us to cover these kinds of topics is to get comments from you, reactions from you. When I talk, you give hearts, lots of hearts. When
No.
Janelle talks, angry faces.
Face, angry face.
Angry faces. But also, if this discussion is one that you think would be helpful for those around you, you could hit share. You
Yeah.
click share on this and you can share it with your family and friends. So here's the scoop. We're going to a school district in the outskirts of Chicago with this particular story. And it was covered by the Daily Herald and some others. But in this case, you know, when you see one school district make a move in a particular direction, it's likely inevitable that many more will follow.
Yes.
And rather than have us talk about it from an Ohio perspective, I want you, before we read this, to imagine that you are a parent in this school district. And you're a follower of Jesus, and so is your kid. Okay? So here's how it starts. After addressing the controversial issue of transgender student access to locker rooms in a few different ways over the past 4 years, Palatine-Schaumburg High School District 211 board members Thursday voted 5-2 to lift a requirement that those students use privacy stalls. So a 5-2 vote. It's a decisive victory.
Yes, it is. Right.
Board members Mark Kramer and Pete Dombrowski, they were the ones who dissented. They had tried to get to delay the vote, but that didn't go. One of the board members, Ed Young, said, "I myself have been subjected to discrimination all of my life. I know what these people are fighting for." While privacy stalls have been made available for all students in locker rooms at the district's 5 high schools. This is a big school district.
Right.
They got 5 high schools in their school
Yeah,
district.
that's crazy.
So there were privacy stalls available for students, not for all of them. So imagine for yourself, a privacy stall would be like a changing room, right? I mean,
Yes.
imagine any variation of what you do like at Target or something when you're going to change clothes. But only transgender students have been required to use them. So at their past policy, it would have been, if you're transgender, you have to use the privacy stall to change clothes.
Yeah.
If you're in your whatever you identify with locker room, okay?
Yeah.
But when second semester classes begin after the holidays, no such rule will be in effect anymore. As in, they will not be required anymore to change inside of privacy stalls. They'll be changing with the general population of whatever gender they identify with. One board member said, "Discrimination is never an acceptable compromise." One transgender student who's been fighting for this said, "It's a great first step. It's huge, and school districts across the state and nation are watching," which is true. I think this is why we're bringing this up. But Vicki Wilson, a fellow Palatine resident who co-founded the residents group Students and Parents for Privacy, called the new policy, quote, "a joke and a slap in the face." She said as well, "When you turn all intimate spaces co-ed, that is egregious." Now, some of the debate about this has been many people thinking about like middle school boys. Thinking what middle school boys want to do is be like, "Hey, you know what, today I'm a girl. I'm going to go watch the girls get naked."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what we're afraid of,
Yeah.
right? So Superintendent Dan Cates addressed this very specifically in this article. Quote, "One of the biggest concerns we continue to hear is the idea that anyone can go in any locker room whenever they feel like it, as if a different gender can be declared at will." He said, "That's not the way it works in District 211. Upon a request from a student's parent or guardian, a student's stated gender in the official school record establishes the student's gender for access to gender-specific facilities." So he said it has to be with specific parental intervention before a child can change where they identify.
Oh, wow.
So we don't need to get into one of those debates about middle school or adolescent boys wanting to look at naked girls, okay?
Right.
Because they'd have to get their parents conned into this somehow to make this work.
Right.
But regardless, there's a number of ways to look at this, of course. One of the key points of the debate, the article says, over the past 4 years was whether students will still completely undress in high school locker rooms. Advocates for transgender students' unrestricted access say no, while members and supporters of students and privacy, students and parents for privacy say yes. Now, I don't know about your experience in high school. I know a guy who was in high school probably in the 70s, and they were showering every time. Okay, I was school in the 80s and 90s. Nobody showered.
Yeah, we didn't shower. We'd just go home. But I wasn't a big time athlete. I just never saw people showering. You just go home and shower. Now,
Even during the school day, you just change clothes. So now you're disrobing down to your underwear, but nobody was getting naked.
there are,
Except for swimming. That's
that's what I'm saying.
swimming.
Because the swimmers, and that's a big team, and at least in Shaker it is, and every day they would get undressed because they have to.
and see.
So there has to be, there's crew there in the water, but I don't know if they, so I'm just saying, maybe there are situations where it's required.
But now here's the deal. Put yourself. We're not giving commentary on what this school district did.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a parent in this school district, and your kid is going to this school where after Christmas, when they go back to school, transgender students who have officially changed their identification gender at the school don't have to go into a privacy stall. They can change right out in the open in the locker room with your kid. What are you going to do?
So Deborah says, which locker room does a transgender person go to anyway? This is crazy stuff. Mike says, is this, wait, first hold up. Just somebody, I just wanted to highlight what she said. Can't believe it. Kristen says, Janelle, a blanket? I know.
Exactly.
It's freezing in here. So can you speak up
I'm
for
fine.
the people from the Caribbean? Thank you. Call Moody Radio. Mike says, is this bathroom or showers also? Jennifer says, when I was in middle school and high school in the 90s, we all had to take swimming.
Yeah,
So that
we
would
did
be-
too, but to be honest, little kids are nervous about their bodies and such, and so everybody just put a towel around themselves and changed. But I'm only saying that so that we don't get off in the weeds here going
Yes,
like,
okay, good.
everybody's running around naked.
Yeah.
No, no one's running around naked, and you can't just at will change your gender to go look at naked girls if you're a boy,
Yes.
okay? Or vice versa. But the reality for these parents is that after the holiday, Christian families will know that a boy that identifies as a girl will be in the girls' locker room changing out in the open with everybody else. What do you do as a Christian parent? And we have to tackle this because at some point this will come to our own backyards. So what you gonna do?
Deborah says, I think another locker room totally will be made for them. What do you think?
That's not what they want.
You know what?
That's not what they want. That's not what
Other
they're asking
places
for.
may have this, I'm sure. But my family goes to the Jewish Community Center, and when I first joined, they just had women and men locker rooms. And that was an issue for me, and I there was some issues I had because the boys they were like 5 or 6, and I don't like my boys at that age in the men's locker room. But then they were like too old to be with the women. So now they have family locker rooms. So it's not even about transgender nothing, it's just whoever uses it. So what I'm saying is, could that be something, if we're going to protest, something solid we could say, like options for kids, because this is going to start merging into fitness clubs. And
Sure, but this
let's
is not
look
what
at Target.
transgendered individuals are asking for. Transgendered individuals want to be treated like everybody else, and if they identify as female, they want to be in the women's locker room because that's what they think they are.
Okay, but
so they don't want a transgender locker room, they want to go where they identify.
So let's say I'm a female, whether I'm in the middle school, college, or a fitness club, and I feel uncomfortable because of whatever I see. Let's say somebody transgendered and I'm not really feeling comfortable. Let's say somebody's in the process and it's a male trying to be female. That's an option I could be given where I'm not being looked at and I have more privacy. So part of me is thinking,
So like
for those who have issues, there's options to go private. It's not like there's
private school?
No.
Oh, to like go
Private-
into the changing stall.
Yeah. So like maybe we don't have to make as much of an issue if they provide an option for you to go to private areas.
And for parents in this district, that's where a Christian family would legitimately have an issue, where they could go, well, we have a couple of choices. Pull you out of the school district.
That's an option, but that's not a reality for a lot of families. Oh, the district, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like move somewhere else.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
move.
All right.
Not everybody can afford to move, but you can pull the kids out. Or you say to your kid, look, if you feel uncomfortable and this happens to you, because there's not that many transgender kids.
That's what I'm saying.
If they're in your class,
Exactly.
you could just say, go to the stall.
Yeah.
Or we can make a big stink about this. We can call
Like,
it
why
Mike
does it have
Huckabee.
to
We
be-
can
Yeah.
we can start a big protest. You know, transgender people, get out of my locker room.
And why does it have to be forcing them to go private? I could just go private in a private area. And then it solves it because you can only control you. And if it's going that direction, they already voted, it already went there. But maybe you disagree. What would you do if you were in this situation? Sheila says, I have no personal experience with locker room changing, so I don't know what normal is. I'd maybe have my daughters use the privacy screens for themselves instead. That's good. Deborah says, when we redefine what God has created, we run into all of these issues. It reminds me of the Target bathroom issue.
No, but see, the only thing I'd say, Deborah, is that we, as Christians, haven't changed anything.
No.
So we, as followers of Jesus and employees of the Moody Bible Institute on Moody Radio, we believe in God's standard for human sexuality. There are two genders, male, female.
But we live in what's becoming a secular country. We can't control.
Well, I get that. Well, but that's what I'm saying, is that if American society changes that, I guess I'm not all that surprised.
Right.
I'm
Right.
disappointed, but they aren't Christian.
And so
They
I
don't
think
agree with our standards anyway.
we could be angry and complain, or we could just do what we can do. So even when the Target conversations have come up, it's like, okay, well, then go with your daughters to the bathroom if you're concerned. Or, you know, lock your, like, I don't know. Or is that unrealistic, or is that not good thinking to just say, okay, I'll just do what I can do? Should we push for change and try to change what's happening?
Yeah, Deborah, I thought that was the case. Yeah, I got you.
What
yeah.
does it say?
You meant, she said we does not mean Christians.
yeah,
we,
yeah.
it's the world. Yeah, I got you.
Deborah
Makes sense.
says, but if they do have a stall, will children all want to try it out and cause mass issues?
Yeah, I mean, could it be reasonable for Christian families to ask the school district to provide enough changing stalls in the locker rooms for all students in every
They're
class?
not all in the class at the same time. Like, they're not all at gym. Or,
Well, but in theory, if your kid, let's say there's 30 kids, 40 kids,
yeah.
couldn't it be reasonable for Christian families to say that we want 40 changing stalls in every locker room?
Yeah. Then the other thing is how you make that child feel. We know we have people within the body of Christ that are struggling with these issues, right or wrong. And then can you imagine, just put yourself in their shoes. If your son, whether you like it or not, is going through something like that, and then they felt like everybody's running from them in the stall, you know?
Yeah, because it's a real, like, gender dysphoria is a real thing.
Yeah.
I think we lose when we try to paint them into pedophiles. There
Oh my
really
gosh,
are
yes,
people
no.
who think they're trapped in the wrong gender. And so to paint them as monsters, I think, is unhelpful and untrue.
Yeah.
They need Jesus, and Jesus can heal them of their sin proclivities, because I have my own.
And
It's
in the
not that, but-
meantime, to make them feel like outsiders, kind of like the lepers and the prostitutes in Jesus' time, you know, like, yeah.
So we've got to be careful. We don't want, you're right, we don't want to hurt or embarrass the transgender
Yeah.
child in the school district with our frustration on this policy.
But even that, with our frustration, but then even if it's my child in that district, what kind of conversation as a Christ follower am I going to have with my child? So that when they walk into that situation, they shine a light. They're set apart with how they engage, even with those who
So
are.
how do they do that? What would you say to your kids? Let's say that your kids at Shaker on the swim team are going to go through this. What do you tell them? Do you pull them out?
I wouldn't pull them out. I would tell them, if you feel uncomfortable, then find a space. Don't make a big stink. And try to make an effort where it's just discreet, you know, where you're just,
Would you complain to the school district about it?
no,
Why not?
no.
There-
Especially
it violates
Shaker.
your religious beliefs and your son's
No.
privacy.
No, because it's a public school, it's the government, like, no. I just don't think it's productive. I would more be concerned about how am I going to equip my children so that they know how to apply scripture in their everyday living. You know, my daughter, I would talk about it and tell them this is what you can do.
But what if your daughter came home crying about it,
Oh my
saying there's
God.
going to be a biological boy and we're in swimming and I'm going to have to take off my clothes
But
in
you know
front of
what?
the boy.
Even in swim team, to be honest, if my daughters were like, Mom, I'm really whatever, then I would say, okay, well then what you could do is just, I've done this at the, like in the summertime when you're outside. You just dry yourself, put your sweats on and come home. You know?
So tell them just quit swimming.
No. Put your, like, dry yourself and put your clothes on top of your bathing suit.
Well, so they would go to school in a bathing suit, let's just say.
Because I'm assuming it's after school. There are times, because Isaiah swims, and they got to swim in the morning and then go to class. Man, what would you do? Especially the daughter part. And I know that's bad. I'm just saying, that's a different feel. When it's a guy transitioning, I'm sorry if that sounded bad, but.
Well, no, see, here's the thing, what I've learned too is, like when I was a kid in high school in the 90s, do you remember when the term gay was a pejorative? It was like, if something was dumb, it was
Oh, yeah, I
gay.
remember that. Yeah.
And so homosexuality was not, I mean, forget transgender, homosexuality was, like, it was not cool to be gay. It was not acceptable. It was kind of like, ugh,
Yeah.
okay? That shifted.
Yeah.
That's gone. In schools today, high schools today, the idea of somebody being bisexual, transgender,
Pansexual,
homosexual,
remember
that is like, kind of like when we were kids, somebody going, oh, you're having a ham sandwich today? Oh, I'm having
Yeah.
turkey. Like, it's just, it's not a thing. And so, like, pushing up against this, what will be accomplished? Like, how will we get them to change their policy to conform with Christian standard?
Yeah.
Will we be able to?
I don't think so.
And then I mean, the hard reality is that we don't have to go to public school.
Yeah, but no, just like sick days not being available to everybody, the option to pull your child out from public school is not really
Well, at the high school
available
level,
to
at the
everybody.
high school level, every state has an online schooling option.
Oh, that's true. Even before, no, starting kindergarten, you can go.
Well, yeah,
That's
but I'm
true.
just saying, like, if you can't supervise them, if you got to work, they can
Oh,
stay
yeah.
home and do their schoolwork.
I'm glad you said that because yes, there's online public school, which is really awesome. Actually, very tempting because you get a free computer, but and free everything like printing, whatever. But like you said, a lot of parents are working and cannot supervise their children.
And so I think if we're under the illusion that we can somehow just gather a bunch of people and change public opinion on this, I'm just trying to say I think it's way too late. So now we have to decide how to function in the midst of it. What would I do with my kids? I don't know.
With your daughter? No, you
I
can't
think
say I don't know.
I think it would depend on the kid because I got two girls and one of them would probably be like, "Oh, Dad, I just cover up or whatever. It's not a big deal." Another one might cry about it.
So what do you do?
I would ask her to be changed classes, maybe privately, and maybe the school would accommodate. And if not, I don't know. I'd have to come up with an alternative. But I don't want to automatically assume my reaction is going to have to be like losing my mind and protesting and freaking out. I don't need to die on that hill
Yeah.
because I'm a sinner who needs Jesus and transgender kids need Jesus. And so I don't want to be this like, kind of like freak out Christian.
I do think it's a great opportunity to have the child practice loving, like practically loving like Jesus would, in the sense of like, man, can you imagine how this child feels?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a sin. I'm just saying it's a child and they're going through whatever they're going through. So it would be in my house an ongoing discussion. And we do a lot of talk as Christians. Oh, we love and we're all that. But I think these are opportunities where not only you could teach them how to walk their faith, but you can model it. Because I think as parents, a lot of times we like the lecture and all the principles. But then that's an opportunity where they can see. Are you really, like, do you really walk what you teach me every day?
Here's what Stephanie says. I don't want to hurt a child's heart. However, I do not want my child's heart to be open and exposed to the opposite sex body at a younger age. I have to protect my child. That's my God-given role. That is the tension.
Yeah, that is.
And see, I really appreciate how you started that, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Because I think like, we have to have a heart for the lost. We have to have a broken heart for the lost. Or we sound like we're self-righteous. And so to start off by saying, I don't want to hurt a child's heart. That's saying that a transgender child has a little heart that can be broken.
Yeah.
Okay, and we don't want to break their heart.
Yeah.
And so this is the problem, Stephanie. It's like, what do we do then in these situations where in this Illinois school district, they're to the point where they're one of the first in the country to really offer unlimited full access to a kid who identifies as transgender in the locker room they identify with. What would you do, Stephanie?
We could say, let me read some. Mike says guys are already competing in women's sports. This is going to get worse. Deborah, and some teachers in schools are encouraging these different sexes at least to explore them. Crazy. Eva says every little girl should feel uncomfortable. A boy is a boy no matter how he feels inside. Eva says, I think there should be 2 separate bathrooms for trans kids. We shouldn't subject everyone's children to what's happening within them. What are we exposing our children to, and how many non-trans people will take advantage of this?
Well, but remember, the school district says you can't just change your gender on a whim. You have to have your parents go to the school district and officially go through the paperwork to transition your gender at the school district level. So it's not a whim, and we have to be careful on that. But as much as I think the easy compromise would be you have 3 bathrooms, men, women, whatever.
They're not going to want to use that.
But that's the thing with transgender individuals is they don't want a separate bathroom.
Yeah.
They want the rest of the society to say, I don't care what your biology is, whatever you think is what you are. So I don't know that they would want that.
Yeah.
As much as we like the idea.
Yeah.
I don't think they accept that,
Yeah.
which makes this even harder.
Sheila says, this is such a tough issue. Hopefully teach your kids to be strong in their faith. I have no idea what I'm going to do when my kids are ready for high school. I want to protect them, but I also want them to know what the real world is like outside of their current Christian school setting.
And that's the other thing. It's that this could just extend into the rest of the world.
Dude, like we are late because it's happening in college. I went to Oberlin College. There were dorms that were like open, like the bathroom didn't matter, and it wasn't even about gay. Like, and not everybody's kids are gonna go to college. What I'm saying is, like you said, even with the world, are we really preparing them to know how to walk their faith in a secular world if we protect them? Because I was gonna say, well, you could pull them out and put them, because they could still be in the district. Like Isaiah has the option, for example, I could pull them out of Shaker schools and put them in a private swim club. That's easy. But then what's gonna happen? Like, it's not gonna stop there. We had Target, now the school. So I don't know if we could dodge this any much longer.
Well, and on top of that too, I wonder, I know the early church must have dealt with stuff like this, and I know it sounds crazy, but when you look at what Roman culture was like, American culture is like a convent compared to what Rome was like.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. The Emperor Hadrian, I remember being in my ancient Rome class in college, the Emperor Hadrian dressed up a little boy like a girl and married him.
What the heck?
The emperor.
An underage kid?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Regularly, you would have emperors committing incest. Regularly. In the city of Pompeii, when I went to visit, I love to point this out. One of the most visible, prominent things you see are arrows all over the ground in the cobblestone. Large arrows pointing to the brothel. And the arrows are not arrows, they're shaped in a phallic shape, okay? And there's no question about this, ancient Rome. And when you get to the brothel, it's still intact in Pompeii, there are pornographic frescoes on the wall. Now, I'm only saying that not to offend anyone, I'm saying that to say, like, clearly the early church had to deal with things like this. And they managed.
Yeah, but
and
then
they spread the gospel.
There's that scripture. I'm reading Romans, and it's like a new book to me. It's not, but the word is living and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But to see Paul's heart for the lost, and even there's a scripture you quoted today that was about defend your faith, but with a winsome attitude. You quoted it, and it was just
with gentleness and respect.
That's what I'm saying. So, and that's in the middle of everything you're talking about.
Yeah. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, all those things are fruits of the Spirit. And so, however a Christian family in this particular school district is convicted, it's got to be born out of the reality that I'm a disaster, and yet I'm joyful because Jesus died for me anyway.
Yes.
And that everybody around me, the transgendered kids, their parents, They need the light and the love of the gospel,
Yeah.
and my job is to introduce it to them.
I'm really reading Romans, but I've been reading through First Peter, and in that one, he says several times in the context of wives with husbands, but even with the people around them because of the it wasn't persecution, it was just like trials that they were experiencing, and he was like, let your behavior win them over. So he was talking about the lost, and he was like, let the way that you engage them in these areas win them to the truth of the gospel. So let that be our attitude.
So
Where
how-
we're
yeah.
not just protesting just to win. You know how Reverend Zechariah says that. You don't want to just do apologetics just to win a debate. You want to win souls. You know, and so I'm hoping, because this is here to stay and it's just going to get worse, that we approach it with that attitude, with the attitude of the early church that lived all in that mess.
Yeah, and instead of getting mad, going like, oh, look at how many lost people are in school district 211 in Illinois. Man, they need Jesus in there. As opposed to,
Yeah, but it's hard. It's tough because, like you said, if you got your baby coming home crying. So yeah, we try to come with solutions. I tell Brian, you ain't that smart. You don't got solutions.
All right, family, we
Thank
out.
you guys.
Like and share this conversation, and Lord willing, it won't come here too soon, right?
Yeah.